Yo, what's up?
Baby, let's go!
Broadcasting from Big B Studios, your station for classic hip-hop, R&B, and much, much more. You are listening to WUSP 1550 AM, W238CA, 95.5 FM, Utica, New York, The Heat.
This is Ron Klopfanstein, and you're in the hot seat on a Media Monday. Hey everyone, I'm Ron Klopfanstein, and you're in the hot seat on a Media Monday. We want to welcome everyone who's streaming the video of this broadcast on Facebook Live, as well as our audio streaming audience at 955theheat.com and on the TuneIn app, as well as those of you listening to the broadcast at 95.5 FM. Today we're going to check on our audience's concerns about the status of the Tram. We stopped down there on Saturday. You see they're on hiatus. We want to find out what's up with that. When are they going to be open again? We stopped down and found out about that. We also went to the Trash to Treasure Artist Exhibition. We're going to take you there. But first, this year WIBX is celebrating their 100th year on local radio. 95.5 FM's John Steman worked for WIBX as a reporter, and Scott Carr worked there as a DJ and as a journalist both. They're both here in the studio today. Welcome to the show, Scott Carr and
Thank
John
you, Ron.
Steman.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you coming in today.
So Scott, you were just painting a picture for us of 100 years ago, 1925. There was no Facebook Live and no Twitch and no...
There was no TV, Ron.
But there was radio, right?
And there, well, this is the thing I wanted to get across. So let's try to imagine when it's 1925. Radio doesn't really exist. It does, but the only people who have radios are these freaks. You know, these people who are they're so caught up in this new technology, which was only invented in 1909. So it was only a few years later. But so nobody had receivers. People didn't have radio receivers pretty much, unless they were ham operators. You know, they were kind
and by receivers, you mean like what we think of as a radio?
A radio,
yeah.
Which I know a lot of people, radio's kind of going by the wayside. Some people tell me it's going to be dead in a few years, but we'll see about that.
Not yet.
Not yet. Anyway, so John and I worked together at WIBX.
Not 100 years ago, but
that's right.
I would say like 33 years ago, maybe, or
so this is the 90s?
The 90s,
The 90s.
Yep. But I was going to get at is that the origin of WIBX, 1925. I'm going to ask John Steman a trivia question. What were the original call letters of WIBX?
Oh, gee. Do I have it here on my cheat sheet?
It's WSL, which apparently only lasted for about 6 months.
It was in a store, basically, right? It was like a demonstration, and they just...
A radio parts store called Grid Leak Company. I didn't know what a grid leak was until I looked it up. Grid leak is kind of, well, it's a type of radio resistor that you needed to have a radio back then, a receiver. So Grid Leak Company, it was a little tiny electronics store on Bank Place right here in downtown. And then a couple doors down, there was a music store, or maybe right next to it was a music store. They sold pianos. Back then, believe it or not, you could not play phonograph records on the radio. The record companies didn't want it, and I'm not sure exactly. Do you have any idea why?
I'm not sure why they would not want the promotion. They just weren't thinking that radio product was so primitive. They weren't thinking promotion yet.
Yeah, it might have scared them or something.
Yeah.
But so the music store next door sold pianos and other instruments. So they would play the piano on the radio. That would be their programming. And live instruments on this little side studio. Man, I'd love to see that old studio set up back then.
How the people that wanted to sell the units, how they made the content, you know.
They wanted to sell radios, so they were like, and guess how many watts for that first station?
How many watts?
10.
Wow.
Which meant they didn't really get beyond like downtown.
So how far would that have gone?
About downtown.
About downtown.
Yeah,
I think actually 1550 AM is somewhere around that wattage.
Is that right?
Maybe 100 or something like that.
Well, but put it in perspective, IBX now is 5,000 watts daytime.
Oh, really? So how far does WIBX cover now? Like how much in terms of like geographic?
I think they travel a lot farther to the east. I think they got almost over to Albany, but when you go west, there's some station that's protected. Maybe it's in Buffalo, so that kind of prevents them. I don't think they really get into Syracuse, or not very well anyway, but north, I think they do okay. most directions probably at least 50 miles for a good signal, except west, I think.
AM signals change around a lot because they're kind of squishy, you know, and that's why they have 5 towers to point them all in all these different directions. But anyway, we could skip ahead a few decades, and IBX later became a very important part of the community. News and weather and all kinds of shows. Gosh, and this is way before it wasn't all syndicated stuff. It was live people, you know, talking to their own community.
I remember that in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
What was it like there in the 80s and 90s? Like, what was it like? What kind of content and programming did they have?
News. It was all news talk. I was a DJ, but not there because Hank Brown played records from 9 to noon, but after he
had
left.
Departed by the time I arrived in '87, and what it basically was a very well-staffed newsroom. I mean, surprisingly so for a place like Utica. I would say that there were probably at least 10 people in the newsroom
Really?
when I arrived,
people?
although that slowly, you know, it dropped a little bit through the years.
And the Sports Watch program with a whole host of Danny Clinkscale, the guys who really knew their stuff, Bruce Markison, Jim Jackson, they've all gone on to high-profile jobs.
9 people who did Sports Watch. Well, 8 of them went on to cover a Major League sports team on the air, including Jackson and Clinkscale, and then Bruce Markison has had 5 books, I think, published now on baseball, and is at the Baseball Hall of Fame. So, I mean, if you did sports on WIBX, there was a time where you were about guaranteed a good play-by-play slot if you wanted to move on, and Sports Watch continued, I think, till about maybe a dozen years ago on IBX, but it kind of faded away. They kind of didn't devote the resources to it.
Everything's syndicated programming now, right?
Yeah.
Well, almost. I mean, they still got Bill Keeler on in the morning.
That's
But,
pretty
you
much
know,
it,
that's kind of
probably,
gutted radio, if you ask me. You got to have live people on the air like you got local people here on this station.
So during the time you guys worked there, it was kind of like a CNN kind of thing, like a 24-hour news operation. You were gathering news, producing news, putting it on the air.
They would run Art Bell at night, the crazy.
I remember that, yes.
The UFOs
yes.
and everything, yeah.
Yes, Art Bell, yeah.
But other than that,
the
it was.
way the shifts
Other than
ran,
that, though,
there was somebody in the newsroom almost 24 hours a day, because for a while I'd do the night shift, and if you had like a really contentious Utica council meeting that went till 11:30, you'd be working in the newsroom till 1 or 2, and then the morning people would be in at 4, so probably about the only hours that were uncovered was maybe, 2 or 3 o'clock.
Yep, that's right.
So what happened? I mean, I kind of know.
The
but
industry's
what
changed a lot. That's
Yeah.
that's the big headline here. This station is kind of I'm glad to see
We're
it.
very
I call it
unique here.
commando radio. You know, you've got
Yeah.
your own setup here, and you're actually still on
Right,
talking to the
local
community.
people, like organic.
And you don't have Rush Limbaugh and Brian
Right.
Kilmeade and Dr.
Right.
Laura, and
Right.
It's cheap to program that stuff.
Right.
You got Democracy Now! Here. I don't know how much longer you're going to be allowed to,
I know
to play
it's-
that show, because the Washington Post fired a columnist just for bringing on some quotes.
This is what I love about John. He's always on the cutting edge of that.
Yes,
He
yes.
knows stuff that I don't know.
So,
What was it like to work there then, to do news then? What's been exciting? Like with all those people, like when it was, I remember a time like when people would turn to WIBX for information. Like people would.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well,
like.
I grew up with it as a kid, because
I did too.
Well, because I
Right.
wanted to know if the schools were closed.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the schools.
was a
Yes.
snow day,
yes.
right?
where else
Yep.
would you find out?
Right.
Back in those days, what I will say is that I'm not trying to deride them, but you see all this history of WKTV, but WIBX was way ahead of
Oh, yeah.
WKTV and news.
25 years.
It wasn't until maybe the mid '90s they had Dick Lawler and a co-anchor start the morning news, but mornings on WIBX were a guy practically reading out of the paper. He did it for
Right.
many years, Jack
Oh,
Frederick.
KTV, you mean?
Yeah,
yeah.
and IBX was like what you tuned to in the morning if you wanted to find out what happened. And it just it was a
Kinda like a
stronger
capsule,
product
what
at
was
night,
going on.
but
Yeah, it'd
the
be
whole
like
thing
kinda
of
like an
TV morning
overview,
news
right?
hadn't really gotten big yet. I
Yep,
think
they had farm news because back then there were farmers who needed to know.
farmers, yeah.
I don't know what the future's
we had a
on.
whole hour of farm news when I arrived there. It was like
Yep.
5 to 6.
It was a big Tom Yorchak. We had dinner with Tom the other night. We had a bit of an IBX reunion,
Oh, I
Tom
saw that on
Yorchek was
Facebook.
there. He was one of the first. Well, not the first, but he was one of the farm reporters. I remember.
Yeah.
I guess the pork futures. See
I
what they
came
were
up
up
here,
to that
and one
morning.
morning I was driving along listening to a segment about cracked bag, which I guess is some condition that the cows get. That,
Oh, that.
it's like you learned a lot
Sounds serious,
listening to the farm show.
So, like, what happened over time? Was it just like less money, less ratings, the audience fragmented, less
It was
advertisers,
ownership.
so like less reporters, so like just like little by little less local
It's cheaper. It's like I
content?
said, it's cheaper to program that way. You don't have to
Yeah.
hire actual human beings. And now with AI coming, Ron, look out.
Yeah, I just read an article in Vulture that Wondery is like doing a thing with AI podcasts where they can like, with this business model, they can like have 1 million AI podcasters that get like 3 listeners a piece, but they can still make money advertising. But what's lost is that like shared culture, you know, that people like
Yeah.
listening to the same podcast.
Well, everything's moved to your phone,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And your
right.
computers. So everything's digital and radio. I've got people a lot younger than me keep saying, you know, radio's going to die, Scott.
Why do you think it's still here? Why hasn't it
Well,
died?
because it's been here since 1925 here in Utica.
I guess it's
yeah.
still because people invested.
That's right.
Yeah.
People used to
People
invest
still
in.
investing,
Actually,
so-
it's amazing the amount of money back in the 40s and 50s that people were putting into those shows. They had live orchestras
Right,
on
right,
IBX.
yes, right.
An orchestra? Really?
And there were famous people that passed their way through here through the years.
Who are
Scott
some of
was
them?
saying that, you know, Lou Burrell was a personality that
Yeah.
later went into Utica politics.
Yep.
And there are pictures online of him with just a who's who of rockers and R&B
But
artists.
you know
of
what,
the
John?
50s.
There's very few people in our business that I'm actually jealous of, but Lou Burrell is one of them. He's passed on now. But there's
He had a
pictures
great
of him
career.
with Buddy Holly and the Crickets. I mean, the list goes on and on. Tom and Jimmy Dorsey, Chuck Berry, Tony Bennett. I don't know about Frank. I don't know if you ever. But they put what was the big rock around the clock?
Bill Haley.
Bill Haley.
Bill Haley
yeah.
in the Comets. These acts were huge, but we're talking late 50s, so it was a different world.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Lou Burrell's got pictures of himself with all of these people.
No, I got to work with him too at Planet Utica too. Did you guys get to work with him? He was an amazing.
Not
guy,
work
you
with,
know.
but I interviewed him for the 75th anniversary. So I got my
Oh, do we have-
75th
yes.
anniversary shirt and for the occasion. And I did get to interview him about the anniversary and the history, and he gave me quite an earful. Lou would go on and on. He could talk. He was a good politician.
And he had a great radio voice. I always thought, even when he was elderly, he used to come
Absolutely.
into, when I worked in politics, he'd come in and it was more just to hang out a little, but he still had that, he was 90 years old and he still had a good radio voice.
He did.
Yeah,
Lou
absolutely.
Burrell.
And then we have to mention Hal Smith.
Yep.
It was a big personality in WIBX, I guess in the 40s, I would
Yeah.
say. And then some years later, he became a household name because he became a television character actor. And
Oh,
his
really?
most famous role was as Otis the Drunk on the Andy Griffith
Oh,
Show.
that's right. You were
Yeah.
telling me about
Back,
that. Yes.
the Andy Griffith Show was a really popular. This is before my time. But
Yeah,
it was
it
a
was a popular,
really
yeah.
popular show in the early '60s. So Hal Smith got really famous doing that as Otis the Drunk, because everybody watched that show. But in 1939, he was doing the morning show, doing silly voices on WIBX, which almost seems kind of hard to believe. I interviewed a guy who used to drive him in to work in the mornings. Oh, I can't think of his name. It was on the tip of my tongue. It popped right out of my head. But he was another long time IBX guy, and it's going to bug me. I can't remember. But he used to drive Hal Smith into work. He told me in an interview for the 75th anniversary, and he said that sometimes Hal would be out late the night partying a little bit, and he'd have to drive down to his apartment and bang on his door and his windows to get him up out
To
of
wake
bed
up.
to come in to do IBX.
It's hard to imagine like a radio station locally, like with such a big staff, like even like a TV station with such a big staff now. Like it's kind of sad. Like all the
It is
all
sad.
the people and like all the people that are out there like actually getting news. There's so few people to go out there and like ask questions and get answers and
That's
What
right.
I have to
You
think
know,
is
it's like-
it's got to be, and I don't think a lot of young people, for various reasons, are looking to this business. Like Scott and I did back in the 70s and 80s, but it's like, how would you even get into it today when most of the stations are mostly syndicated and journalism programs are being cut left and right all over the country?
What advice would you give to young people that are interested in radio?
No, radio? No, not radio, man.
No, right. Or journalism.
Well, journalism's still hopefully not dead yet.
In different forms. I mean, newspapers aren't doing much hiring either these days.
We're hoping I don't end up in a concentration camp doing journalism, but you know, it's like, I think that, I hope there's still room for people to go out there and like actually go out there to get a story, like to talk to people.
We need truthful journalists, if you will, to try to mind the store.
No matter what the platform is.
Well, let me just give a cautionary tale to our listeners that there's a lot of baloney information out there. I've been in the news business a long time, in the last 15 years in Washington, and the national troops on the mall right now is a joke.
I know.
They're doing not much more than picking up cigarette butts and I guess looking big and tough, but they can't arrest anybody. You know, our armies are not supposed to be policing our cities.
Right. I mean, I think that what our society has is Fox News poisoning, and I think we have to, you know, I think part of that with the media is part of we have to figure out, like, what are we going to do if there isn't enough honest, factual, unbiased information getting out there to balance off all the other stuff. It's
there's a lot of propaganda out there.
There are, yes, and it's like, I think that things are certainly intensifying now, but we will talk more about that though. We're talking to radio broadcasters John Steman and Scott Carr about 100 years of WIBX radio. When we return, we'll stop down to Utica Creative Reuse to check out their Trash to Treasure exhibition, and later we're going to check in on another one of Utica's treasures, the Tramontane Café. I'm Ron Klopfanstein. You're in the hot seat on a Media Monday. I'll have more after the break. This is Ron Klopfanstein. You're in the hot seat on Media Monday. Hey everyone, welcome back to the hot seat on this Media Monday. We're talking to radio broadcasters John Steman and Scott Carr about 100 years of WIBX radio. But first, this past Friday, Utica Creative Reuse celebrated the opening of their Trash to Treasure art exhibition with an artist reception. Photojournalist Jim Hale and I were there, and we have this report. I'm Ron Klopfanstein, Utica Creative Reuse, where they're having an artist reception for their Trash to Treasure exhibition.
Was he mayor of Rome or Utica?
He was, I think he was like city controller of Utica.
That's it.
And then had Hannah beat him, and that was the end of his
That's right.
political career.
I thought he was mayor of something. Blue, wasn't he mayor of something?
And it's an anatomical human heart with agave growing out of it, and some of the other Mexican elements like Day of the Dead Skull, kind of the fetish with bones and other things.
Kimberly, your work is called Bee. Can you tell us about it?
Sure. This is called Bee, and this year I did a project about saving the bees and what everybody can do individually to help promote sustainability with the whole bee population. So there's
She runs what?
Swan's daughter runs the Utica Creative Reuse. They're doing the story
things that
on
we can all do to help keep the bees alive, and it's essential for our agriculture and survival. So we all should, try to do a little bit. I think we can all do our part. If you have a place to possibly put a clover or a little bath with water, or if you can plant wildflowers.
I was really, your work is called Playtime is Over. I was so taken to this because of the record. From a radio station, it's like I see this, how cool, I love the colors. What is the meaning of Playtime is Over?
Yeah, so I found, when I was collecting trash to do it, I was on one side of 233, and on the other side I saw a flash of blue under a bush, So I went and I like wrestled it out, and it was this like huge play mat. Yeah, which I thought was cool, and I didn't have like an idea for what I was gonna do for it. And I was kind of like rummaging through an old closet, and I found like a box of forgotten crayons. And so I was like, oh, like that kind of fits with like the play theme.
Colors.
I was using like a hair dryer to melt the crayons onto it, and I just kept thinking.
So that's what this is.
So this is paint. So the planner is melt the crayons, and then as I was doing that, I just kept like hearing like playtime is over. But like, I'm gonna go, you know, like here I am melting crayons on playtime. So that's what I painted, and then the record I actually I got from a box that belonged to my grandfather.
This is my time.
It's the Letterman, if that means anything.
Before my
Yeah, and then I was just like, oh, I can make it into a clock. So I just, so the record player was from a box that belonged to my grandfather, and the colored pencils was from a box that my mom got that belonged to my grandmother. And then I just made it like
so being an adult means you get to do a little bit of play, and then you gotta work, then death.
And so is life.
Let me ask you, how important is color to you as an artist? There's obviously a lot of color here, a lot of color choice. You see the color of the record labels, the color reflected in the pencil. Wow, what does color mean? Why is color important?
So because I just think like our childhoods are so vibrant and so playful, and then I think adulthood has this weird like wash and brown.
I ran into a friend of our show, Lorraine here, the award-winning artist herself. This is the first time we've ever been here to Utica Creative Reuse. What do you think of the place?
I am bowled over. I had no idea this was here. I saw your show, I saw that piece, and now I get to see it in real life. You gotta see it in real life.
What do you think of some of this art? Let's take a look at some of this stuff over here. I saw you talking to the artist. What I love,
and the diversity, the different pieces. I mean, oh my God, isn't it? And it feeds your soul. You know.
Why is art important, especially in these days?
Well, for me, I know my own experience. It keeps me from going crazy. It literally heals me. I believe you got to get the crazy out of your head. Get it on paper. Get it on the stage. She's going to go do improv right now. Next week she did this. Now she's going there. It's incredible the creative energy around here. And then these little pockets like this that I didn't know existed in three
galleries. Yeah.
And then the plastic is more.
So, as an artist, what do you think, what do you see, what do you feel when you look at something like Pay Timeless Forever? So you were talking to the artist?
Recyclable art. Like that piece recyclable when she talked about it. When she said her grandpa gave it up. She never heard the Letterman, and I'm like, oh.
That was even before my time.
Fabulous. This is fabulous. She pulled that out of the garbage, you know, it's like, yeah.
Do you feel like having the found objects adds sort of like more, another element to it, another layer, or like more realness of
No, definitely. I mean, it's not just that, it's also the fact that there's, number one, is cheaper to use found objects, and also it doesn't feel like a scavenging that to me gives me a lot of joy. I mean, just the act of doing it.
Yeah.
And also just, it's very organic in a way. I mean, not just because of the bone, right?
Right.
There's things that people just throw away that have inherent value as pieces of, like, in an art object.
The work here will be on display until October 17th. The Utica Creative Reuse on Ron Klopfanstein for 95.5 FM, The Heat. Stop by and see that art for yourself. For the hours and location, go to uticacreativereuse.org, or you can find them on Facebook. This year, WIBX is celebrating its 100th year on local radio. 95.5 FM's John Steman worked for WIBX as a journalist, and Scott Carr worked for the station both as a DJ and as a journalist. They're both joining us here in the studio today. So WIBX, so what's an interesting story about your times at WIBX?
You want me to go first, John?
Well, I was thinking about Ed Hanna.
Yeah, that must have been something else.
Presence in this city, I'll tell you.
Because, when I was there and he had sort of a long comeback, it took him quite a while to get back in as mayor. And actually, the start of his return was when he defeated Lou Barrio, who we have been talking about in the previous segment as Utica City Controller. But I think he had lost a race or two before that. I mean, this took years. It was like 8 years before he finally...
he was mayor once, and then he came back in the 90s.
When he came back, he beat Lou LaPola by the narrowest of margins. I
remember that.
Right.
It was a bit of a surprise.
Well, LaPola had been in there for a while.
People were just had
tired of
12
him,
years. Is
Yep. So I got to cover both of those mayors. Ed Hanna was a real character.
He was very bombastic.
And we were saying somebody should do some kind of a story.
There's a book to his life, because his early life was interesting too.
Oh, really? I didn't know much about him other than the mayor times.
Yeah, well, he was an advocate for trying to rebuild Utica, especially, Hanna Park, which I guess I just drove by there and I didn't see anything much left of it. What it was is certainly gone if it's in Hanna Park and only at this point.
Yeah.
But he was very passionate about the future of the city of Utica. I had no doubt about that.
What's it like to cover him?
He was definitely, there's things about him, Ron, honestly, I don't want to say on the air because we could all get in trouble.
Well, what I will say is that if you were on his good side, I never took it as a compliment, because that meant that he thought that you were promoting him, not so much being fair, but promoting him. So most of the time I was actually on his bad side, and he liked to call up and rant and rave. And like one of my colleagues said at the WIBX reunion the other night, I would just put the phone down and walk away after a while, as he would just go on this diatribe about how the media was all against him. And he used to be on, I think it was what's now 92.7 FM. He had like a Sunday show, but it was
I used to board up and produce that show. It was on WTLB. It might have been simulcast on an FM station, and that was an experience. An hour long. He paid for the time to run to do an hour long commercial basically for himself, and he would rant on and on about the corrupt media and the corrupt, especially Observer Dispatch. Oh boy, they were just Satan in disguise. But he had kind of a weird perspective, but I never doubted his passion for trying to improve downtown Utica. And I don't think he even needed the money. He made over $1 million before he even ran for mayor the first time, because he developed some chemical process. He told me he had a little apartment in West Utica, and he was working on some chemical process for a long time, and he finally got it, and he sold to Eastman Kodak.
Wow.
And he made a bunch of money that way, and next thing you know, he's running for mayor. I'll tell you one quick story. I try to do it fast. The one thing I feel guilty about in this market, Ron, is when I quit WIBX, and I think it was '88, they had hired this guy to do an afternoon show named Phil Stern. And his show, talk about bombastic and frankly ridiculous, and he wasn't very nice to me anyway. And he was too much. And one day, not him, but another guy was literally pushing me out the door, telling me that I couldn't be the news director anymore. It was all very untoward. I didn't understand what was going on. So my final moments on the air on WIBX, right before the top of the news, CBS, the tone at the top of the hour, I played Already Gone by the Eagles, and basically said, I'm out of here.
Wow.
Thanks, it was fun, but see ya. Well, a week later, Mary Jo Beach, she was the general manager at Time. She says, I'm going to get you back, Scott. And lo and behold, she did. About a year and a half later, Phil Stern quit, and I believe under kind of murky circumstances. He went down to a job in Columbia, South Carolina, and I know they threw him out. They run him right out of the show because he started making an issue out of. He would do a talk show and just try to get people all worked up over nothing, and
Yeah, I
sometimes it was
that.
just ridiculous.
Right.
So, quitting on the air like that to go join Keeler in the Morning at Rock 107, that was.
Oh, so that's where you went after WIBX.
Yes, Bill kind of bailed me out of that one.
So you had a place to go. So when you couldn't.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, I felt a little bad about that because, as I told you, IBX. was kind
Media
of
is
in
dramatic, though. It can be like that.
It was in my DNA. And I was a little ticked off.
Right. So did you go from DJ to journalist, or did it go the other way?
Paul Dunn needed a news person at WTLB in 1988, and I stupidly said, okay. So I started doing the morning news on WTLB and Rock 107.
What did you first do? Like, did you just start to go out to gather news, or did you just read the news at first?
I'd go out and cover the mayor's news conferences, Lulapola, the school board. Oh boy, the Utica School Board. That was a hotbed of fun, huh? Tales of corruption going on.
Was that the Gene R. Curie times with the segregation, and they wanted to remember that?
Yes, that was going on, but there were also contracts involved. That
one of our reporters. Our part-time reporters at WIBX was covering the school board. I think that was normally my beat, but maybe I was out of town or something, so she agreed to cover the Utica School Board, and Gene R. Curie was getting into a debate with another board member, and it got more and more heated, and her daughter lunged at whoever the guy was sitting next to our reporter, and Maria, who was rather diminutive, said, I'm not covering the Utica School Board ever again. Because she almost, I don't know, got assaulted.
Came to blows, yeah, right. That was a crazy time.
That's how tumultuous it was at those meetings, and I would guess that they're a lot less tumultuous now.
There was a lot of money on the line, Ron, at least to some people.
Jobs is what we were talking about, basically, I think.
Yep. And
making sure that our people
building
got the
contracts.
jobs.
Building contracts were worth a lot of money.
Well, we're talking today to broadcasters John Steman and Scott Carr about 100 years of WIBX radio. When we come back, we'll check in with the Tram. I'm Ron Klopfanstein. You're in the hot seat on a Media Monday. We'll have more after the break. This is Ron Klopfanstein, and you're in the hot seat on a Media Monday. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. On the next Hot Seat Media Monday, we'll be joined by some of the cast and crew of the Arcs Alice in Wonderland on stage. Then on Monday, September 29th, we'll be joined by my friend Betsy Snyder, who's running for Supreme Court Justice, and Miss Cleo Cupid herself, Beth Doxeter, the great burlesque performer producer. But first, after a Facebook post sparked concern, photojournalist Jim Hale and I headed down to the Tramontane Café to see what was going on with this on hiatus thing. We have this report. I'm Ron Klopfanstein at the Tramontane Café, where a recent Facebook post by the cafe saying that they were on hiatus has got their fans very concerned. I'm with Fred. Fred's one of the performers tonight. And Fred, you're telling me you came all the way from Athens, New York to come up here through the Tram. Why make that long trip?
Well, the short answer is that aside from the fact that Utica is just all soul, that being said, this place is like the distillation of that soul, the soulfulness of Utica. Back in 1999 or 2000, I was a touring musician, and I had a friend who was a songwriter from Albany named Amy Abdu. She told me about this place called Virgo Bat and Leo Frog's Coffee House, which was Robin and Garrett's previous incarnation. She said, you gotta play there. People are awesome. The audience and the people that run the place. It's $1 cover, but don't worry, you'll make a little money, and you're gonna love it. And I've been coming back for all these 25-ish years since they had to close that place. Yeah. And then they opened this place, I guess about 12 years ago or 13 years ago. Yeah. It's just, look, if you look around, it's
I was going to ask you, why is this such a special place?
It's a place where people are encouraged to be themselves.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And
that's kind of rare nowadays.
It's very rare.
It is.
And for me as a performer, it's a place where I'll play a brand new song and everybody will start singing along. And it's a song I never dreamed anybody would sing along to.
Yeah.
Now I thought of it as a sing along.
Right.
And just people.
One of those places like where when you come here, you know, all the people that are going to be here are good people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's like a comforting thing, especially now, you know, nowadays.
Yeah. And on top of that, now they make these great sandwiches, and they used to have the soup,
Yeah.
and really nice cookies and muffins and all that stuff.
So what do you be doing here tonight on stage?
I'm just gonna be singing my butt off. Just mostly my own material. I'll do a few old tunes that people know. And just I hope to walk out of here exhausted with no voice left. That's always the goal when it comes to the Tram.
But filled up in your soul, right?
Yeah. And many of these people that will be here, I've really become friends with.
It's that kind of place.
I don't live here, and I'm made to feel like a part of this community.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a really special place.
Late at night, when I can't rest, a mockingbird sings me a jest. The catalog of my mistakes goes through my head. Each song he makes, don't give up the ghost. Hold on, you're getting close. Some kind of answers, or at least some questions, finally worth asking.
My late husband retired. We used to refer to him as the busiest guy who was retired because he came here pretty much every day. And where Ron Kai's is sitting, where John Kai's is sitting, that was his office.
Oh.
And he...
What was his name?
Roger Smith.
Yeah.
And he was one of the musicians who performed here. He'd come to open mics, he'd come to the spoken word poetry nights, and he even created these little poetry chapbooks.
Wow.
And handed them out to people when they came to poetry night. And he loved it here because he was probably the oldest person in here at the time, because he was in his mid-70s.
Yeah.
And he loved meeting everybody. And
can you show me his spot here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right there was his office.
That was his table?
That was
Nice.
his table.
Wow.
That's one of the drawings of him.
The picture up there, the guy with the glasses?
Yep, and
Nice.
there's one in the corner over there that was from his, he cut his first CD when he was like 72.
Oh my gosh, that's
And
amazing.
because he'd been playing guitar his whole life.
Yeah.
And he just felt comfortable enough here with everybody.
Yeah. I'm with Ashley and Karen, and Ashley, you're going to be performing here tonight, right?
I am very excited.
You're a musician?
Yeah, musician from Syracuse, New York. Karen and I were just reminiscing. It reminds us of a place called Happy Endings that used to be in Syracuse in the 90s.
I remember that place in the 90s.
Yes.
Yes, it was Town Square.
It was, yes.
Right.
It has that nostalgia of like old school coffee house, cafe feel that we love.
Yeah, maximalist, filled with antiques and beautiful art, vintage.
You guys drove all the way from Syracuse to come here and you did performance.
To be here, to play.
Like why is this such a, I mean, there's so many cool places in Syracuse too, but yet you drove all the way here. Why is that?
Because like attracts like. So when you look around and you see all the cool vintage artwork, the delicious foods and teas made with love, the people that come here are like the same things that we like, and this is the good stuff. So priceless experience.
So what do you say to people? You know, it's like to try to get the message out that like you have to, it's more to support art and artists, but also to support the businesses that support the artists too.
Yeah.
Like the Tram.
Yeah.
Like how would you best articulate that to the public to come down here to watch people like you perform, meet artists, but also like to spend some money too.
Yeah. So Garrett and Robin are amazing people. They're great people, right? Again, they've built, this is their home. And when you walk through the door, you feel like you're home.
You really do.
And home's got to pay the bills.
Yes.
Got to keep the lights on. The food is delicious. They're not skimping anywhere. So very important to support the local places.
Yeah.
And when you go into them, you feel like you're in New York City. And I didn't have to drive. So I drove a long ways. Yeah, I didn't drive 4 hours. I drove 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Not too far.
Especially in this beautiful weather where the leaves are changing.
I interviewed someone here 2 weeks ago, and they said this reminded them of San Francisco.
Yeah.
You know, the different colors and stuff. You as an artist, what do you think about the color palette here? Just the
I mean, well, this is
vibe.
This is exactly my vibe. It's maximalist and vintage, and the colors from the 70s. You know, you got turquoise, orange, all of that. I love it. I think it's beautiful, and I love the Christmas lights, and it's the little touches. It's the paper mache sun behind me.
Oh, it is, right?
I love it here.
Yeah.
There's somebody we're not guessing where it goes. It's an old fashioned feels like
It's a lot of other ones. Like Buckley.
There's something I can do. When the reckoning's hard, you fight for me, I'll fight for you.
Everybody I spoke to tonight agreed that the Tram is an important gathering place for the artistic community in the Mohawk Valley, and they hope that it stays open for many years to come. At the Tram, I'm Ron Klopfanstein for 95.5 FM, The Heat. Although the Tram has reduced its daytime hours, it will be open evenings this week, Wednesday through Saturday, and it has some cool events coming up too. A drag show on Friday and a pop-up sale on Saturday. They also anticipate Sunday hours from 10 to 2. They're online on Facebook for more information. This year, WIBX is celebrating their 100th year on local radio. 95.5 FM's John Steman worked for WIBX as a journalist, and Scott Carr worked for the station both as a DJ and as a journalist. They're both here in the studio today. So guys, 100 years of WIBX.
Could I give a shout out to people who helped me and locally in my career?
Please do.
Mary Jo Beach, as I mentioned earlier, she rescued me from being shoved out the door and gave me a job back at WIBX, and I'm forever in her debt. But also to Tom Yorchak, who was actually the first person that got me on IBX. After John Swan left, they had a big hole. So he was like, stick him in there, and so I have to thank him for that.
So that's how you made the jump from DJ to news. You replaced John?
Yes. There was a bit of sales in between there, but yeah, pretty much. John Swan had left, and they just needed somebody in the newsroom, so they stuck me in there. And like I said, I grew up with IBX, so that to me was just fantastic. And I took it to heart. I put together all new sweepers and got to do the morning news. And
you did sales too?
Briefly, I was working in the sales office.
We might not let you out the door, because that's like we're really into commercial sales here. So it's hard to do though, you know.
Sales is one of the tough. I can't really do it.
Yeah,
I'm not a salesman. But George Carpenter, I have to thank, because he let me stay on KG104 and do what I always wanted to do, and that's just play records on the radio. Quick little story about WRUN. This is where I started on WRUN, and I saw the death. And you were there too. The death of AM radio was right around 1981. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's when it just was. In the 70s, everyone listened to AM radio for their music.
Right,
and everything, and not just news. Those were the big top 40 stations, WTLB and WRUN.
WTLB, yeah.
One night, Tom Shine was the general manager. We had a mouse problem because the station was out on Thomas Road in Oriskany, where you had all kinds of animals, skunks, deer, foxes.
So actual mice, not computer mice.
Yeah, right. There were no computers yet, and so we had a mouse problem. So he got a cat, and I'll never forget. And playing records on the radio. Man, there was nothing like that. So one night the cat jumps up on the turntable platform, and I'm on the air, and he's watching the stylus go back and forth. He starts swatting at it, and he hits the stylus at one point, right off the air. I'll never forget that moment.
What was KG104 like?
Well, there was a lot of good times there with Brian Johnson in the afternoon. Shout out to Bill Early. By the way, shout out to Lou Santa Croce, because I worked with him at WIBX, and he's here now doing what I know he loves, is jazz music. So you go, Lou. And the KG104 was my first job, and it was just so much fun. George and Although Bill Early was there before that. Fred Miller, I'm sorry, and Fred Horton were there before that, and they did a morning show on WRUN. That was the end of morning show on AM radio. I think when Fred and Fred's were off the air in 1981. And
why did it shift from AM to FM in the 80s?
I think just obviously FM sounds
It was better,
for
but,
music.
yeah.
AM survived for talk because people aren't that worried about the fidelity,
The high
of a
fidelity
talk
kind
show, but when you're playing Inagata Davida,
wasn't it weird? Yeah, well, we won't get into that story, but wasn't it weird though that it seems to me that they would have discovered prior to 1981 that FM was a better signal for
That's
music.
what I wonder. Yeah, like why didn't FM take off in the 70s or 60s?
It's a good question.
Or,
like where I grew up, there was the station called WSBA, and it was sort of in York, Pennsylvania, and it was kind of a legendary top 40 station where it was really high energy and a big deal. But they had an FM that was just plodding along in the mid 70s, playing easy listening music. So
Yes.
meanwhile, a couple small time operators started up FMs and just wiped them off the face of the earth. I mean, WSBA still exists. With the last time I saw, they had like a 2.2 ratings running syndicated talk.
Right.
Like, why in the mid 70s didn't these big AMs just immediately shift to FM?
I know, right?
Just doesn't make any sense.
Thankfully, some AM stations like IBX now, it is on an FM channel, so they can get an audience of any size. And sadly, WKGW, that was KG 104, it stood for Karen G. Woods, the wife of the owner.
Oh, it did?
And it went dark when Big Frog 104 took the signal, and now that station's still going gangbusters on that frequency.
I never knew that it was named after the owner's wife.
Yeah, it's funny the naming. By the way, I have yet to be able to discover what was there any meaning behind WIBX, because I couldn't find any. I guess it's just a random. Is that a Roman numeral? It seems like it should. It seems like it should have meant something.
I've never heard a reason why they. I guess it's unlikely an owner's last name would begin with X.
That's true.
So it's not an owner. But
it seemed kind of a random pick back then, but later it became fashionable, like a vanity plate, to name
right.
your. RUN stood for Rome Utica News.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
I know TLB stood for something, and I forget what it was.
Maybe talk and something.
Yeah.
John, who are some of the people that helped you get your start at WIBX? Like locally, who are some of the people?
John Swan hired me and was, has remained a friend.
Yes,
for
you guys were on the
almost
show
40
a month
years
ago,
now.
right?
We go to lunch or breakfast fairly often, and keep in touch. And he's probably one of the best writers I've ever known in the business.
And he's writing Charlie Chan stories now.
And doing well at it too. I think he's up to his third or fourth book now.
Alex the Mystery.
There was a news anchor named Tara Howard. It was probably one of the most talented people I've ever worked with. She wound up being news director at ABC News in New York City. Unfortunately, she passed away a number of years ago of cancer, but she was just a great news voice, but also she loved the business and gave me a lot of good advice, back in those early days.
She was a smart woman, no doubt.
Yeah.
What's the best advice for someone that covers news? Like for me, I go out, do these news stories. What's your advice for me?
Don't get bought out.
And to try to keep it simple. If you're in radio, you've got to find a way, you can't make the story too lengthy or...
Yeah. One of the things I try to remember when I do these feature stories is when I'm talking to the people to reference what I'm seeing so that the radio audience can hear it, can see it too. Because I sometimes forget that the people that are the people will watch the video that we heard on the show on YouTube, but to hear it, it's a different thing. You want to get more of it looks like this kind of stuff. And that's hard. I mean, was that hard for you guys at first?
Well,
to do news on radio, where you have to
I can tell you this, Ron. The first night I was on WRUN overnight, I was shaking like a leaf. I was just nervous as all heck. I have a recording of it. It's very embarrassing.
I would say that I'd done more newspaper reporting probably than radio.
So you would have had to describe things in writing either way.
Swan would take my copy and and hack it down to size. Like I still was writing a little too much, like it was print. And
Yeah.
there's a difference between writing print and writing for the ear.
Big difference. And I work for NBC. I do NBC newscast now. I think you'll still hear me on WSYR out of Syracuse. And this guy was asking me to do my radio voice. So that's like NBC News Radio. I'm Scott Carr, and then you just go into the news. And there's a little ding, 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 and a jingle and all that. And I write all my newscasts, and you got to be able to write quickly and concise.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep. Well, our guests today were John Swan and
John Stemen.
Yeah,
that happens a lot. That's happened all through the year.
The shadow was in my print here. John Steman and Scott Carr. We've been talking about 100 years of WIBX radio. If you'd like to see the feature stories on Utica Creative Reuse or the Tram, they're on my YouTube channel right now, but I'll have the video and podcast of this entire show online Wednesday at uticaphoenix.net/Media Monday. Our sound engineer is Jonathan Brooks. He's DJ J Easy. He's up next with the Easy Ride Home. Jim Hale records the show for YouTube and podcast. Lily Christopher is our associate producer. Nabil Khan is our entertainment correspondent. I'm Ron Klopfanstein. I'll be back next week with another Hot Seat Media Monday. I picture you guys.